We'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight for our March Power Hour. I'm Tessa Chappell. I live in the Midwest in Indiana, joined by Megan, who is out in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. And tonight we're going to make 2 layouts in hopefully an hour or less, or maybe slightly more. We'll see. So we're going to start out and flip down to see if it stayed. There we go. How many of you ordered the new trimmers this week? CM sent the updated 12-inch trimmer and the photo trimmer, so you have a little bit of a sneak peek tonight because Megan and I were on the list to be able to get a sample. So I have the photo trimmer here, and Megan, I think, is going to surprise us looking at the 12-inch trimmer. So I am going to use it in my design tonight. But what is different about it are the numbers up here, which is game changing to me because I have trouble remembering what measurement I want at the same time as I'm trying to count where that cut is. So it worked out well actually with tonight's layout. So this is one of those layouts that you can use your scraps or maybe um, just small pieces of paper when you have a lot. But I've been working on our trip to New York and I had various sizes photos. So there's a couple of concepts today to mention. One of them, we're going to make just this kind of corner triangle with 3-inch squares, and I'm going to cut them up with my photo trimmer. And then we're going to talk a little bit about photos. Some of you already have these photo template grids. They're not new, and this is the older version, but they also just came back out with them. And they can be helpful for us when we want to trim our photos down, but maybe it feels kind of scary because we don't know what size it should be and who wants to cut their photo wrong and have to reprint it. And then also what came back this week were the placement mats. We've had these before. You've seen Megan and I use them, all the different sizes. And so the system of using these, if you don't have your photos ready yet, and sometimes you can grab one of these too, write the photo on there that you want to print and have it ready. And then the grids can help you determine what size that you want to use. So for this layout, what do you need? You need a base paper, and then we need, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different prints on mine. So that's like 6 papers front and back, or you could just use a couple. If you like both sides of your paper, you could flip it, but it doesn't take very much paper at all. For this demo layout, I used Your Own Way, and I'm going to forget what's the name of this BMC as a decorative waves. They all sound the same to me currently. You can choose something to make a little edge along here. For tonight's, I think I'm going to use the Vintage Post, which came out with Global Getaway. So I'm going to try to create a layout with the New York paper pack. I thought I would make a layout for Cooper's book, and I have a selection of pictures here from New York. The only challenge is with your papers, if you're choosing directional papers, you have to think about it a little bit harder, and odds of you having your design upside down are higher. I'm accepting the challenge tonight, and we're going to see how well this goes because the New York paper pack had several directional papers in them. For my base paper, I think I'm not going to use this paper. Sometimes we get these papers in the packs where you just kind of like one thing in the corner. When I was not thinking about this, first of all, like kind of like, I could just put this whole triangle thing up here and keep this down here. It would be fun for that. So I do need my 12-inch trimmer also because I have to cut these down a little bit. So I'm going to give myself a couple 3-inch strips because I don't have too many scraps yet for this set. The 12-inch trimmer will be wider here. You'll be able to get 6 inches, which I am super excited about that concept. This gold paper. I have some cardstock in case I need it, and then I have this paper. This should give me enough to play with. Sometimes I do like the smaller size of the photo trimmer. You guys all know I loved my 12-inch straight blue trimmer, but I did agree to try this and I've never gone back. I do like it. One of the upgrades with it is it has a magnet down here. And so when you go to close it, there's definitely more of a snap to get it in place. Mine was a little bit loose here. My arm never flopped, but some of you have had trouble with your arm flopping. If you didn't, there's no reason you need to replace your trimmer if you like it. And then it has the safety grid here, just to slide your paper under there. But you always want to keep it closed because when you leave it open, if you come up against that blade, you will cut yourself, speaking from experience. It is a very sharp blade. So I'm going to give myself a few more options here. I'm going to cut some 3-inch squares. Has the numbers on here now. I'm going to go ahead and cut all of these. I don't actually know what combination I want yet, but it'll give me some options. Have any of you been using this for paper or photo mats? I like the satisfying sound. I feel like it would be a nice TikTok video if you like those sort of things. Was it ESMR or something like that, whatever that's called? Give myself a couple more. I didn't think I cared about the measurements until they sent me this and I was like, yeah, it has been hard for me to count at the same time as thinking in my older years. Okay, so that gives me a few squares and I'm going up here in the corner. One of them I want to leave uncut and then the other ones I'm going to cut. But before I cut, I am going to take a little peek at my direction of the prints because if I cut them in half, they're going to be upside down. I might need to cut an extra one or so. So if you have directional papers, it can be a little bit of extra work. So this gives me one of each. So I'm going to cut my words this way so that when it sits on the paper, I will be able to read some of them. So the nice thing about this, I meant to check and I don't know, I didn't use it on the other one. Do we have the diagonal line on the other photo trimmer? I didn't ever use it. Okay, Wendy's not. I didn't ever use it much, but it is helpful. So it has a diagonal line, and then I'm just going to put my 2 points along the trimmer. The one thing I like about cutting my little squares on here versus the 12-inch is when you're on the 12-inch, you have to cut in the middle and go up or down. You don't want to push against the corners of your triangles. And this one, I don't have to worry about that. I just give it a nice little chop. I cut these in half. And with a delay in shipping, we both appreciated being able to see at least one or the other of them. We're not going to get the other one for a couple of weeks, I think, the way they're going. And then this one is a direction too. This one doesn't matter as much if it gets turned upside down. So once you have some squares cut, you want to dry fit it first, decide what kind of design you want. I have to think about this now that I'm coming in the opposite corner. It's going to hurt my head a little bit. I want my long line to come towards the center of the paper. You're kind of recreating, you're just putting squares back together, but you're mismatching where they sit. Actually worked out pretty well. I'm just going to cut one more of these so that I can have words facing the right way. If I did make this into a double page layout, if you have a direction issue like this and you mirror image it, I'm pretty sure it should work out on the other side with your pieces. Okay, so that gives me my pieces of extras for a second page. Then you can start adhering them. I'm going to adhere my big one in the corner first. Takes a little bit of time to adhere them, but then it's almost done. How many of you like New York City? I love to go. You know, we went last year. I'm open for various excuses to go. And so this is kind of funny. It's funny that I thought I had a chance. When I saw the advertisement that Harry Styles was doing his residency in New York, did you guys see that? But they're literally all sold out. He has like 28 shows. I was like, we could go to New York and go to the concert, but that's not going to happen. I don't even see any resale tickets up there yet. And I'm sure if they resell them, I will not bill for them. I was hoping maybe we could find cheap flights and just go for the weekend this summer just to do a couple shows or something with Cooper. But if the price of gas goes up, they say the airline tickets are going to follow. I don't know if there's going to be any cheap fares to find. If you do have a little bit of, see that I'm going to have an issue here. The bad part about doing anything with the grid like this sometimes is a little bit of inconsistency with the cut because like I have a 3-inch line on my trimmer, but that line has a width to it, right? So depending on where I put my paper, I might be off by just a hair or so. So if you are off, it's going to be better to push your extra open space to the edge. You could always clean cut it because you're going to notice it more towards the center of your pieces. Making sure I get retro tape on the corners of these triangles so they don't lift up. That's the easy part of this. The hard part's picking out your papers. But as you can see, if you give yourself some options, it usually pulls together. But it's inevitable too. You're going to have kind of this unfinished edge along here, and there's a couple of ways to finish it. You could find border stickers, great length stickers, or you can punch something. I decided to punch, like I said, I'm going to use the Vintage Post BMC. I haven't used it yet, but I like the design is a little bit different than a wave. And I'm going to punch this burgundy cardstock. A lot of times we tuck these pieces, but I want this piece to go on top because I want it to hide my inconsistency. And so I want to trim it pretty thin. These edge style punches were something that I requested because I feel like sometimes our BMCs have so much design and I wanted to have options of something a little bit more subtle, but a little bit bigger than the decorative blades. And that's what I feel like these BMC, the 3 that we just got, give us. So I cut that pretty thin. Now you're going to notice this isn't actually 12 inches. It's not going to fit the entire length. So you have 2 options. You can punch 2 of them, or you can wait until you know where your photos are going to go and then just cut it and split it. So when I did this one, I knew I would have a photo here. And so I just cut my piece here and I spread it apart so that the missing length is hidden back there, and it saved me from having to punch another border piece. So if you don't have photos yet, it's a little bit harder to do. So let's talk about photos. How many of you like to trim your photos down? Some of you, do you feel scared? Like, I don't want to make my photos too small. You look at the crop, the virtual crop, and you're like, who has 2-inch photos? Who has 3-inch photos? Depending on your photos, if you have a lot of portrait style, it can be hard to do that. But when you really start looking at some of your photos, there are opportunities for smaller. And if you want to kind of do the grid like I did, it helps to find a couple of common widths. If you notice, these over here are 3 inches wide. So this was a 3x3. This was a 3x4. So that 3 inches keeps these in line. These were 3.5. So I just did 2 of those on top. This one over here is 3.5x5. So it had the same widths of these, but then I just popped this little 2-inch one up here, and I just, kept the lines over here and tucked it down there in the corner. I know some of you zoom your photos in before you print, which can make it challenging. I'm not that organized, so I don't. But here I have my little template. So if I go through here and I think, can I cut this down? This one is, and I can definitely get that smaller. I might think, 4x4, but then sometimes 4x4 seems kind of big. I want to try to get the cityscape in the background. So maybe I want to go a little bit bigger. I'm thinking probably like 3.5 or so. And what this template will help me do is I can look along the edge. You can either use, like, if you guys have those old white pencils that they used to use for templates, you can use on photos, or the black photo. You just want to make sure that it doesn't stay on the photo, the part you want it to be on. Or you can look, where on the photo does this line up with? And mine's going to be pretty centered. So if I'm cutting it down to 3.5 out of 6, that's going to be about 2.5, so about 1.25. These are not the newest ones. I'm pretty sure the newest ones are almost the same. The skew did change, so I'm curious to see what's different. But we had these a couple of years ago. I never did ask you about that, Megan. I don't even know if she's in the room. If you figured out if there was a difference in the new and old, because I would have said they were the same until I entered it and I noticed the skew is different.
I didn't get into the details, and I'm not even sure where my set of them are, whether they added a new size in there at all.
I'm pretty sure it still says there's 7 of them.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it'll be a curiosity whenever it shows up. If you already have a set, I don't think you need to order the new ones. This one I'm gonna go a little bit above. So I'm gonna flip this around. So it's so nice now because I know I'm going to 3.5. I can't tell you how many times I know what measurement I want, and then I would cut the wrong line. But now it's fun. So this gives me 3.5. I have a Subway one on the way there. I could do that down to 3.5. It's amazing how much space you can save if you're willing to chop. I'm gonna get this one down to 4.5. My goal is to have a few columns. I did that so I could do a piece of that. I had this one to do too. This could also be 3.5. It could also be skinnier. This one could be smaller. I could do this 2 inches for this little bird. It's so much easier to flip them around. Okay, I got the little bird. This one, I need to cut this one down. I'll do 3.5 to start. Do you guys hear how satisfying that trimmer sound is? Slice, slice, slice. I don't know. It's actually, it might be noise canceling out. You do want to keep some band-aids around. I mean, the blade is legit sharp. So, and then this one I could go even smaller. I could probably do a little 3 inch, 3 inch with this one. Let me see. Yeah, I think 3 inches gives me plenty. It can be fun to like just get little landscape blitz, maybe, this is a big landscape. Sometimes we don't like to cut down our landscape photos, but I could just choose part of it. I could just do a little section of clouds or something. It can kind of become more of an embellishment on the page than an actual photo um focus. So I'm about out of time. I'm not going to make you watch me do all of this. You can stay tuned for the results later. But when I line them up, when I determine, I could put this up here, I could split my border underneath it. I will mat these because they are getting set onto prints. I'll need to pop them out a little bit. So I did 3 inches on this one, and I could trim this even a little thinner. I'll probably go down to 3 inches for that one, and then leave these 3.5. I have the little bird one.
You could put the bird down here.
I could put the bird down also. I tend to like to leave the little ones up in the top. If I put something down here, I'll probably go back and find something else to put up here, like another 2 inch out of my landscape. And then I might cut just do a cross section of something down here. So if you cut them down, you can definitely fit more. This paper is from the New York City paper pack. So every now and then they give us these papers where the corner of it has a big icon. And so that's where that came from. If you have a paper like that and you don't like the icon, this design flipped would actually be perfect for covering that up. We could have just covered up the whole Statue of Liberty. We didn't actually go to Statue of Liberty in this trip, so I actually debated covering it up. But it's okay. It's part of New York. So that is the concept. I will work on getting these matted so you can see my final layout when I post it in the group tomorrow. And then whatever space you have left, if you didn't have anything printed, of course, you can add kind of a corner embellishments like I showed you on the handout. So that's that.
All right. Let me, oops, I hit the wrong button. There we go. So welcome, as Tessa said, I'm Meggan Jax. I'm here in Phoenix, and it's 5 o'clock here, which is exciting for me. I'm really excited with the daylight change, or the daylight savings time. Instead of going at 6 o'clock, like I have to do for mountain time, I'm Mountain Standard Time is the same as Pacific time during daylight savings time, so it's 5 o'clock, which means I can get through this in hopefully 30 minutes and out of the door to watch Cody's 6:30 baseball game. So that's kind of fun there. My layout today is going to be, we're going to be using the border cutting tool. Now you're going to note I do have these little, they're like little silicone things on here. I put them on before I really realized I don't need them. I thought that I would have a little more slippage. I think when I first tried using it, I was having a little bit of slippage. And then I realized that I was not using it right. And now I've got them on. I can't take them off unless I go get some like undo or glue removal stuff. And I just haven't done that. So you're going to see these little pads on here and you don't need them on your cutting tools. These are the border cutting tools. They're original ones from Creative Memory, or the first set they came out with. There was two. There was Wave and Ripple is this one. And then there's a peaks and zigzag. And I'm using peak and zigzag today. We'll mostly be focused on the peak side. There's new sets that are coming out. They just came out this last week. They are arch and crest, which is a new one, like completely new design. And then they came out with one that is supposed to mimic or replicate the two edges we had on the old retired decorative trimmer. So many of you have the decorative trimmer, but if you don't, this is a great way to get those edges. And if you do have the decorative trimmer, but you love these types of cutting tools, you'll be able to leave that decorative trimmer kind of at home or whatever, and just keep your 4 border cutting tools available to use as needed for your projects. But we're going to be using, as I mentioned, the peak edge. Now, if you don't have that particular tool, you can kind of just, I don't have a good alternative for you. So I'm really sorry. You can kind of just create borders that, to your heart's content. You can maybe use a decorative trimmer if you do have that. But I don't really have a great alternative option in this particular case. So I'm going to switch over to my overhead camera and we will get started for today. And it's way off. Let me shove this up. There we go. So you're like, Meggan, that looks nothing like our layout that you have on the handout. And you're right, because my layout that I needed, I have a ton of horizontal photos because I have pictures from we went to the northern Arizona, and I have like oodles of horizontal photos. And I really wanted to show that you could do more with this because I'm kind of sick of layouts that have horizontal photos only on them, because that's all I've been making for a lot of things. So I wanted to show that you can come in with some options, because really what we're creating is just these 2 side borders, which honestly you can rotate and use bottom or top. You can make it however works best for you. So this is in the works. I have some other photos I need to have and to add to this. And I'm going to have to be doing, as Tessa mentioned, get out all of those photo placements and see if I can work with some other stuff. Because literally of all the photos I have, this is my one vertical and the rest are all these horizontal photos. Now, some of them I think I can zoom in on. So today's layout, though, I'm going to pretty much just be following the handout, making the same thing. I am going to be using a different collection. This was a mismatch of stuff out of Leave Nothing Behind, some hot fudge cardstock, and I paired it with some green tonal paper out of Natural Beginnings. So for my demo for tonight, I'm going to be using the Global Getaway collection, and I really liked this paper. The opposite side to it is, like a city, vintage city map, but I'm really highlighting the non-specific sides. So when I say non-specific, meaning that the layout I'm going to create today can go for anything. It's not going to be travel. It doesn't have to be travel related. So I've got this paper. I really liked it. I love the patterns. And then I wanted to have something that would go behind it. I'm going to trim this down a little bit. I want to have kind of that mat. So what I'm going to use is there is a diagonal stripe, pinstripe paper that has that dusky blue to it. And that's going to be behind here like such. And then my borders, I'm going to cut out of navy cardstock. So we're going to have some navy cardstock in here. So I'm going to lighter pattern here that will be, I can put my photos on, and I will have the navy detail to bring in that really dark color and that mid-tone blue in the back. That's my plan. Now, what I think I did do is I gutted my base paper. And from there, I was able, on the layout, the example I showed you, I was able to create the mats that I used in my handout. The lighter green that is the base paper is this color, and the reverse side is a very, very pale textured green. And so I was able to utilize that color that I had on that base paper to create some mats. I will be able to do the same for this paper. I'm going to gut this blue paper. The reverse side to it is a very light paper, which itself really won't stand out as a matte on top of this lighter color here, but I'll be able to just bring that blue forward. So I think that's going to work just fine. So I am going to need 2 of my base papers. I already have taken the time to gut one of these. I already did that. So I will take the time to show you how to use your trimmer to gut the base paper here. And I need 2 of that tonal, or it's actually out of the designer paper pack, but that lighter paper from the Global Getaway. And I just need 1 sheet of navy cardstock. So I'm going to start off with the navy cardstock. I'm going to start off by we'll start at step 1. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to remove one of my cutting mats. I don't need both of them here. We're going to need the red blade. We'll work with the red blade on our thing. And I am going to go ahead and I'm going to use a little bit of adhesive to secure my navy to the cutting mat. That's just my personal preference. I'm just going to use a little bit of repo adhesive. And I'm going to set it down here. And that's just going to help me keep everything lined up, because I will be using the measurements at the top and the bottom. And I just don't want to have to keep realigning my paper after making all of the cuts. I kept the bulk of my adhesive over here on the left side because I will be cutting from the right. If you cut from the other direction, you just need to keep your adhesive on that, mostly to the side that you're not going to be cutting. Now, the first thing we're going to do is relocate the directions, because I set that to the side. We need to establish our peak edge. So I'm going to, with the peak edge facing to the left, I'm just going to bring it onto my mat, and I'm going to line up the top and the bottom where the template crosses the top of my paper and the bottom. I'm going to find a mark. I'm going to line it up like 1/8 of an inch at both of those. And when I talk about the cutting edge, I'm talking about this edge right here, the plastic edge. It's not exactly where my cut will be made, but it's the edge of my template. So I'm gonna put that cutting edge right at 1/8 of an inch at the top and the bottom. And I'm going to grab my blade and I'm going to put it in here, and I'm just going to cut from top to bottom. And this for me is scrap. It's usable for something else, but for this purpose, it is scrap. What I have done is I've created kind of like a, I guess a valley cut. This first piece that we're going to do is going to actually look kind of like a bow. I say bow tie, but in all actuality, it would almost be like a hourglass. We're creating an hourglass figure. I say bow tie, but it's an hourglass. So then what I need to do is I need to rotate my template 180 degrees so that my peak is facing to the right. And then I'm going to come over again with the edge of my template, and I'm going to come over about 1 1/4 inch. Now, the big thing here is I give you measurements, but you can make these as wide or as narrow as you want. The 1 1/4 inch gives you, let's see, I'm going to come over. For me, since I started with a brand new sheet of paper, is about at the 1.5 inch mark is where my template is crossing my ruler. And I've got a very narrow cut here. And it's designed to be that way. It's meant to be very narrow. If you wanted it to be a little wider, you could. You can kind of move it around, whatever makes you happy. So I'm going to do that one. My width at the top and the bottom should be about that 1.25 inch. And it looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and cut top to bottom. So there it has released. And now I have basically an hourglass. I called it a bow tie because when you turn it to the side, it kind of looks like a bow tie, but it is an hourglass. Now you can see here, I've got that peak edge. And so now this time I'm creating a diamond shape. So I'm going to rotate my trim or my cutting tool so that the peak faces to the left. And this time I'm going to be about 1/4 inch over from the cut edge. When I talk about the cut edge, I'm talking about this cut edge of my paper. I'm going to come over about 1/4 inch. And I'm going to line up my paper. And this is, again, you're just kind of doing, rough measurements. You want them to be even. when you make your pieces, so if I do, if I decide to make this a lot wider and I come over to 1/2 inch, when I repeat my steps, I need to make sure I do that again. So I get even. My diamond pieces that go on each side of my layout are the same size. But otherwise, you can make them whatever size you want. So I'm going to do about 1/4 inch. Here. And I'll go ahead and trim again. This is creating the diamond. Now next, I have the start of that hourglass. So I'm going to rotate so that my peak edge is back facing towards the right. And I'm going to find that 1/4 inch and line up my pieces here. So 1, and make 1 more cut. So the goal is to get them about as even as possible. I'm a little narrower, I think, on this one than I was on my first, but it's not by much. So I'm fine with that. So there you can see how my shape is starting to take place. So I did mention before that the circles on here are silicone pads that I put on here. You don't need them. I put them on before I realized that this was not going to stick, or it was not going to slide around. I was worried that it would based on my usage of other rulers, not Creative Memories rulers, just other rulers, and I don't need them. So you'll see these on here, but you don't need them at all. And Donna, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying, what doesn't work for you. So if you could type a little more detail into chat, I will try to help there. Now, what we need to do here is we have the start of a diamond. And what I really need is I need the start of an hourglass. So I would have the option, I could just rotate my paper and do all those cuts again. I have my flush edge of my cardstock or my straight edge, and I could start again. Now over here, I do have some adhesive in play. I don't know. I think it's going to be okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Otherwise, what I would need to do is I could just pull this off, slice this straight, and start my cuts over again. Because even if I were to come here and create another diamond, I still need to make 2 more hourglasses. And so it's better just to start off with that fresh edge and just repeat the steps. So I'm going to repeat all of those steps. I'm going to start off at the first cut is going to be to 1/8 inch, lining that edge of my paper up with 1/8 inch with my peak facing towards the edge. And I did not do a very good job. I wobbled quite a bit on that. There's some practice that needs to come into play if you haven't used your cutting tools. So just keep that in mind. I would practice with paper or cardstock, scrap paper or cardstock first. This is not the tool to be using on your very first. So if these cuts, if you're following along and the cuts aren't working right, you may just have to come back and watch the recording where you can pause and just make sure you have the template facing the right direction. So I've got my first hourglass. So now I'm going to do my diamond. I have the right edge of my diamond. I'm going to make sure that my peak edge is facing to the left. When I look at this, I can tell I'm going to cut a diamond. It's going to get fat as we come to the left side. And then I've got the right edge of my diamond. Now, what's nice about this is I'm using cardstock, so I don't have to worry about directionality of my paper. If I had had a piece of directional paper, I would have had to slice my paper and restart that edge, because at this point, my paper would have been upside down. Because remember, I rotated it 180 degrees. So if you have directional paper, just keep that in mind. If you are using double-sided paper, designer paper, you could take one of your pieces and flip it so that you expose the other side. That can be kind of fun if you decide to use directional paper for it, or excuse me, designer paper for it. I am just using cardstock because it's easy. And there is my final hourglass. So I have another pair or another set of trios to make up that border detail. Now, one of the things you can think about here too is then you can really take this design and you could keep cutting pieces across and make, you could do this all the way across a layout. So it can be if you had, this is like, kind of like that mid-century modern, I guess, aesthetic. If you wanted to do this as a very tonal type of design all the way across your paper, I'm going to use these just on the outside edges of my borders, are kind of like as borders, but I was thinking you could take this all the way across and like maybe do a third, just keep cutting and keep going with it and just make your own tonal paper, basically. So I'm going to lift this up, check for I don't have any adhesive stuck. I'm going to keep my pieces kind of in their collections, their bits. And I am going to come back to getting my pieces here. All right. So now I've already made one frame for my paper. I'm going to take my other 12 by 12 base piece and I'm going to cut that 1-inch frame out there. So many of you have already cut the frame, are used to cutting frames. Here is the new trimmer, the delightful new trimmer. It has, look at those lovely, lovely markings in there. Tessa already pointed them out. It is delightful. And look at this, guys. How wonderful is that? It comes all the way to 6.5. So they've been talking about it, that big improvement, and it is delightful. The one thing you have to know is before on our cutting arm, or excuse me, the metal arm, they did not have centimeters listed, but they had the 1-inch units over on this side, so on the right side. So over here on the left is now where we have inches, which is different. The right side has centimeters. So initially I thought, oh dear gosh, I'm not used to seeing it there. It's not where I expected. I normally turn my trimmer to the side and I can see down here. But I'm going to tell you, the reason I had to turn my trimmer to the side was so that I could see the 1-inch measurements, because I am right-handed. And when I use the trimmer and I'm angling my head, if I angle my head to the right, I can't see the measurements. But if I angle my head to the left, because those inch measurements are now over here, I can see them. So I'm okay with that change. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but it's not too big of a deal. So I'm going to come in here, line my paper up at the top edge, come over to the 1-inch mark. And if you're used to using binder clips, you can go ahead, line up your white edge, that white line with the 1-inch mark on your trimmer. You would set your binder clips accordingly. And you're going to go ahead and cut out a 1-inch border, a frame. Now, you don't have to do this. If you're like, this is not a required step for this design, this layout, this is a paper saving technique. But if it's not something you're comfortable doing, then don't worry about it. So I'm going to go ahead and trim. I'm going to get it at that 1-inch mark. Bring it all the way down to 11. If you are super noticing, you will notice that is basically when the edge of my blue cartridge housing is flush with the paper. It will do a 1-inch. From here to the edge of the cartridge housing, let me bring this up a little bit more, is 1-inch to the white line, 1-inch to the bottom here. So when you're doing a 1-inch frame, you could actually use the cartridge housing to help you with that. Bringing it over here to 1-inch up here at the top, bring it down to 11. And I'm just going to go all the way around, cutting all 4 sides. Pulls out. I'll save those pieces. I'm going to cut mats out of those 2. I basically have 2 10 by 10 squares that I pulled out, so I can use those for mats, or just use them for another project. Now, I want to cut my paper. I want to cut these papers so that they're flush in the middle. My layout is going to sit here like such, and I want these pieces to be flush in the middle. But I want there to be basically a 1/4 inch border showing on 3 sides of each sheet. It's not centered per sheet. My inside edges will be flush. So what I need to do is I need to cut, I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch off the top, a 1/4 inch off the right side of the right paper, and a 1/4 inch off the bottom. And you may be asking, Megan, why are you not just cutting off a 1/2 inch at the top and a 1/4 inch off one side? I want you to look at this design. What am I seeing? I'm seeing that my design is very much centered on my paper. So if this particular paper, I might be able to get away with cutting off. No, if I cut a 1/2 inch off, the top design and the bottom design are going to be a little bit different. By cutting off equal amount top and bottom, I will keep whatever pattern I have going here centered. So that's why I'm cutting off 1/4 inch at a time off of 3 sides. 1/4 inch is to the outside edge, or the right edge of my gray cutting strip. My paper is non-directional, so it doesn't matter, but you do need to pay attention so that you are cutting if you do have a directionality. So I want you to see, by cutting off the 1/4 inch at the top and the side, see, I kept it nice and even as I round that corner, and it's the same down here at the bottom. If I had cut a 1/2 inch off of one side, it would not be even at the top and the bottom. Most of the time, your paper will be that way. There's been a few times where the pattern has not been centered on the overall 12 by 12 piece of cards or paper. I'm going to do the same thing. I am going to just double check. I don't think this paper has too much of it. It doesn't really have a directionality to it, but I'm just double checking. It doesn't. I can cut however I want. I was super excited to get this new trimmer, largely because my previous trimmer was 7 years old. I got it right when it came out, and it was definitely time for a replacement. I am definitely noticing, that it's had a heavy workout over those 7 years. And I'm noticing just things are just a little bit more, it hasn't been flopped open and closed a million times. So it feels really, really tight in a good way. And I say that in a good way. All right, so now this paper, I need to make sure I put it on here correctly. It's going to sit like this. And it'll come in the middle here. So I'm going to put some adhesive on the parts that I'm putting down on my paper. Double check. Yes, because you can put adhesive on all 4 sides. I'm using Repo adhesive. You could use probably regular adhesive here, or you could use the mini tape runner if you have the mini. That would work as well. I could put the adhesive on my frame too, but I'm going to do it on my piece that I'm putting on top. And now here's the thing to note. It needs to be flush I need to switch. I'm doing this in a way that doesn't work for my right-handedness. I'm going to be flush down here at the bottom. The bottom is actually where the middle of my paper is. I'm going to bring it in flush, and I'm going to center it side to side. So I should center about 1/4 of an inch. And that repo adhesive is just so sticky. That is much better. Okay, there we go. Once I get it on, then I can smooth it out. Same thing over on this piece. I'll get my adhesive put on. Sticking to the very outside edge of my paper. And again, now here's what I need. So here's my paper. I have a diagonal. I don't think it matters. I do need to pay a little bit of attention here because since I have a diagonal, my diagonal, if I have my papers just like this, my diagonal in this paper is going left to right. On this page, it's going right to left. So I need to rotate my paper to make sure my diagonals are going the right direction. Now, my paper needs to sit like this because remember, it's going to be flush in the middle here. But to put this on here, I need to rotate everything towards me. So I'm going to rotate both sheets of paper this direction, and that's going to allow me to much easier see how I line these up. And then when I put them back together, everything looks pretty good. So there I have my base paper, my base layout put together. Now it's time to go in with those pieces that we cut. You can dry fit things. This is going to tell you whether or not you like the choices you've made. I probably could have dry fit everything together first to see if I liked my choices, but I was pretty certain I was going to. It's a very, I say generic, it's a very universal blue and white, has these other lovely tones in it. So I could come in with brown, with green, all those colors that you see in the Global Getaway collection. I have all of those options here. So this definitely has a nice masculine undertone to it. Would be great. But these colors would be good for something for Father's Day or anything that's kind of, that you just need those colors. So when I put these on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere them 1/2 inch from the outside edge of my layout. So just line up your paper wherever you want. I lined it up with the nearest, closest straight line. And then I'm going to just adhere these in 1/2 inch. And then when you put the other pieces on, you want them to have about 1/8 of an inch gap from the previous piece. And I just kind of eyeball that. So it's really just that first piece when you put that on that you need to pay attention to. The other ones should not matter as much because you're going to just eyeball those. And so forth. So that's how those pieces will go on. It looks like I was maybe paused there for a little bit. I'm sorry if my computer or my screen may have hiccuped my camera. So I do want to talk about cutting these mats or the mats from this paper. So this is a 10 by 10 square. What is really nice about the 10 by 10 square is I can get those 4 by 4 and 4 by 6 mats from this 10 by 10. What I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to take my 10 by 10 square and I'm going to come over here and line it up at 4 inches. I want to be 4 inches wide. I'm going to slice it at 4. And then I'm going to rotate this and I'm going to cut it at 6 inches. You could cut it at 4. If you have the old one, if you have the current or the now retired trimmer, cut it at 4, you'll have a 6-inch strip left. But if this had been a 12 by 12, look at this. I come over to 6 inches, slice it, and it's good to go. So now I have a 4 by 6 and a 4 by 4. And then I would repeat that same one. Other thing is here, I do have, if I needed more 4 by 6s, this is 6 inches wide. So I would have the option, if you're not sure what you need for photos and mats, just hold on to your 10 by 10 pieces and make your mats when you have your pictures. I could come in here and I can easily get two 4x6 mats here. So I'd have three 4x6, one 4x4. So I'm actually, I'll cut this as I'm going to do kind of the layout that I showed before with those 4x6 and the 4x4. See, I have some, this is a 2-inch strip. I could punch a border with it. I could just hold on to it. You can do whatever you need to with it. But you can see here, coming in with those mats. All nice. I think I maybe shifted them off a little bit. I have to look at my handout again, how I did them. Oh, I remember now. I had a border that I put between, like right in here. You could come in with like a chain border or a sticker. I could have a little bit of a journaling block there if I wanted to, like just have a couple sentences. So it really just kind of depends on what you want to do there. The other option is, of course, I could have just had use a different color, say those 10 by 10s for another project. I do think it would look really nice here to have a third color come in. I do have a lot of blue, and that the whitish color coming in with the green or the brown would have been really nice. But again, probably waiting till I had my photos to make that decision for sure. Just because I just would need to see what do I want to pull out of my photos when I'm using my mask. What do I want to enhance? All right. So that's the other side would just be the same. I am totally glitchy. I don't know if my camera is a little bit spotty for you guys. Like it's just kind of oh, what do I want to say? It's a little spastic. Like I'm a little jerky. And I don't like that. It makes me nervous when my technology starts to misbehave because then you have to troubleshoot it. Linda's saying my vocals are off. I don't know. Tessa, is my like sounding like junk? Is this?
I think when you saw your screen, we heard audio, but I didn't notice your screen cutting out.
Okay. Well, that's good. I apologize
It's
if
better. Yeah.
if it wasn't as clean as I'd like it to be. Again, like I said, it just have to troubleshoot all of the nonsense when technology starts to misbehave. So that's what we have for you guys tonight for Power Hour. If you came in late and missed part of the episode, we will have the recording sent out tomorrow at some time. There are hashtags on your handouts. If you would like to share your layouts in the Ideas and Inspiration group, you can go ahead and use your hashtags. We do a drawing for some happy mail that we send out for those of you who share with those hashtags. One big thing to note is this Thursday, so in 2 days on March 12th, we are going to be doing our National Scrapbook Day project workshop. We will get an email out to you that will have the Zoom, all the Zoom details, which just a hint, it's the same as Power Hour. So, but that's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. It is going to be recorded. And so if you can't join us, we know it's during the day. So if you can't join us, you will be able to watch the recording later. We are going to be putting together the project recipe from the National Scrapbook Day project bundle and the project play or the guidebook. So we're going to be making 2 layouts as part of the project recipe. We'll be making additional 5 2-page layouts out of there's a lot of stuff we're making. I think it's 2 2-page layouts and 2 singles, right? Is that what it is? 2 twos stuff. And 2 singles.
Layouts.
What?
Something.
We're going to be making layouts.
Chicken.
That's what we're doing. We're scrapbooking. So that'll be on Thursday. So hopefully you'll have a chance to join us. If you miss it, don't worry. We will also be sending out the recording for that. Some of you may not quite have your product yet from Creative Memories. I can tell you they are doing their best to get caught up on shipping. I believe they were shipping the 26th and 27th of February products or orders. So just know the orders are going to get to you. And when you do get those that bundle, you'll have the videos all set to go and help walk you through how to put them together. So I don't think there's any other thing. Is there, Tessa, am I forgetting anything? She's shaking her head
No.
no. No. So, okay. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I hope you all have a lovely evening, and we will plan to see you on Thursday. The next Power Hour, did we decide, is that going to be right after we get back from Mexico? Was that the decision?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that is going to be really quick. I'm going to pull up my calendar just so you guys can write it all down. It is going to be on April 14th. So we can all say how we all got our taxes done ahead of time and are not delayed, last minute on any of those. And we will plan to see you on April 14th. All right. Take care, everyone. We'll see you all soon.